Plant Girl here. I was working on making myself some of my homegrown spices today, getting the basil jarred up, and I thought you might be interested in how I do this. So quite a while ago now, probably a month ago now, I picked a lot of my basil that I grow outside and I broke it down into individual leaves and put it into single layers on my dehydrator. And then I put it on the lowest temperature my dehydrator will do. And it usually takes around 12 hours to dehydrate the basil leaves. They have a lot of oils in them, so they take quite a while to dehydrate. And then I take them, I just go through every about 6 hours or so, and I go through all the racks and I pick off any of the leaves that are crunchy sounding, and I put those in a jar. Those are done. Anything that's still quite pliable and doesn't have that crunch to it, I leave on the dehydrator until it's fully dried out. And once that's all done, they're all in the jars. And you want to leave the jars, this one is completely full now because they've all been dried, but you want to keep them about 3/4 full at most at first. And every day I come and I just shake the jar really well and check for moisture in the jar. If there's any moisture, this needs to go back on the dehydrator and just dry out a little bit further. Something in here still has moisture. But when you're doing this, you're shaking. If there's any leaves that are a little more moist than others, they'll kind of redistribute that moisture around. That's why you need to leave some room so the leaves can actually move around. A bigger jar actually works better because they have more room with the big basil leaves to actually move around. And that just is redistributing all the moisture in the leaves in case some are more dehydrated than the others. But if you start to see condensation in your jar, that's when you want to take them, put them back on your dehydrator and let them go a little bit longer. And then I just pack them into these jars once they're good and dry, and I know they're dry after about a week of shaking and checking for condensation. I know they're dry if there's nothing has shown up on there. And you could grind them up right away, or you could just store them in these jars like this and just grind them fresh, or when you have a big batch. So I had 2 of this size jar ready to go, and I've already ground one up and put it into this jar here. So you can see there's some old basil there and there's some new stuff. And I should have dumped out the old stuff and redistributed it to the top, but I guess I'm lazy today because I didn't. But then you just take the leaves and you put them in your grinder, and this one can fit a little bit more. Just put a few more in here. You don't want to overload the grinder, but you want to make it worthwhile. Then you're just going to put the lid on and just kind of pulse with your grinder. If you just hold it down and go too long, you might wind up with just pure dust. And if you don't do it enough, you might wind up with too big of pieces. And then once it's all ground up to the size you like, just dump it into your container, something sealed up. If you have more than you want to put in a jar at a time, you could put it into a Ziploc bag or just back into your jars like this and store them like that, all ground up and ready to refill your little spice container or however you like to store your spices. Usually they're good for about a year, and then you probably want to be making more, but by then you should have had more growing probably, and you can do more. I also am experimenting with some sage this year. I'm going to do that. In the past, I've also done things like oregano and thyme. With those, you want to leave the leaves because they're so tiny on the stems, dehydrate them like that, and then you can usually just run your finger down the stem to release the leaves, and often that's as small as you really need them. If you want them smaller than that, then you could put them in your grinder and grind them up a little bit smaller again as well. There's lots of different spices that you can grow this way. Those are just some of the spices that I tend to grow in my yard and use. You can also dehydrate and grind up onions or garlic and make your own onion powder or garlic powder. I like to make pepper flakes, and so I'll grow some hot peppers, dry them, and then grind them up. Be cautious if you're doing anything like peppers. They can be quite potent, and you want to be careful when you're opening the grinder or dehydrating them the oils and smells that come into the air can affect your breathing and your eyes and whatnot. So it might bother some people, and you might want to do those outside so you have a little bit more airflow. And when you're grinding, make sure that you're waiting a moment before you open the grinder so it doesn't all just work its way into the air and you get a big breath of it. But it's really easy to make your own spices, grow your own spices, and it does need a couple of tools. I'll put links to the ones that I have in the description down below if you want to check them out. But I think if you already have a dehydrator or a grinder, this is just a coffee grinder. I wouldn't use one that I use for my coffee beans already though. I think the oils from the coffee beans just get on everything. And you want to make sure you're wiping it out between the different spices so you're not cross-contaminating. But you can make your own spice mixes doing this. So if you have your favorite kind of Italian seasoning blend, you could do your own ratios and mixes that way as well. So it's just fun to be able to grow your own food and have your own spices that you've grown yourself and get them all made up on your own. If you don't have a dehydrator, I used to do this in my oven. I feel like it takes a lot longer, and you need an oven that can get down to a really low temperature, and just it'll take up your oven for quite a while, but it will work that way too. So usually you just want to find the lowest temperature that your oven can do and just set it out on racks, metal racks in your oven. You probably want to put a cookie sheet underneath to catch any small pieces that fall so they're not all covered in the bottom of your oven, but you can do it that way as well. So I hope you found this interesting. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.